All right, the guessing game. There's a couple ways we can do this. We can use this code as driver code. This is kind of confusing initially, but part of a skill when becoming a developer is actually reading other people's code and like understanding kind of what's going on. So what I'm going to do is fork it over to my personal GitHub. See if I have any. All right, cool. So I'm forking it over. Let me go ahead and CD up one level and zoom in. Clear. All right, I forked it over. I'm going to git clone this. So press a little green button, git clone, CD in the guessing game, open this up into a new VS Code window. All right, here we go. So if we want to read the directions and kind of understand this hashtag / guess or this # / guess, that hashtags and documentation generally means it is a method. In our case, guessing game has a method called guess, which takes in an integer called user guess as its input. So if we just kind of read through the documentation, we can kind of see what the architecture of this should consist of. It should have a guessing game class. The guessing game should take in some variable. This should probably be this is associated with an instance variable. So I'm going to open up here. So we've got this guessing game class. We don't really need that there. Having that there is not going to break anything, but you don't necessarily need it there. The first thing I'm going to create is the dunder init method. And it takes in like answer number or something, whatever this is, whether it's 10. So self.answer number equals answer number. Then if I look over here, I'm still solved will return a Boolean value. So solved is an instance method. So I'm just going to say def solved self, and then I'm just going to pass that because we're going to have to fill that out. And then we also have guess as well as an instance method. So we also have guess, but guess takes in some user guess. Like so. So, all right. So if solved returns a Boolean value, I'm going to create another instance variable called self.isSolved. And I'm going to initially assign it to false because when I create a new instance, the game is not solved initially. So I'm just going to assign that instance variable to false initially. Any questions about the two instance variables that I'm going to be using? Did anybody have anything else that was different? Because if you did, that's totally okay.
Would you be able to? Oh, go ahead.
I created an instance variable for the user input because I use it again in my solved method, and the only way I could do that is if it was defined as an instance variable. Otherwise, it would just be within the scope of the guess function.
So wait, say that one more time. You had another instance variable called for your user guess.
Right, because the way I did it, I used the solved method. Every time the user would guess, it would call the solve method, and if they had gotten it right, then it would return true and everything would end. And if it returned false, then it would recall the guess again until they got it right.
Oh, so essentially it was like a loop until it got it right.
Right, and in order to do that, in order to call the guess method again from inside the solve method, I had to make the user input an instance variable.
When you say the user, like the user guess number, right? Like this variable.
Right, that's going to be do an input to get the user guess.
Gotcha.
And right, if I use that again in the solve method, then it had to be an instant.
Okay. Awesome. Did anybody else store like all the user guesses in like an array or something? Just yay, nay. Did somebody else had something? I guess I heard somebody else before.
I was just going to ask if you could do so for the answer number, if you wanted to do it to be random, could you do the import random and then assign answer number to random.random int and then give it a range? Would that work?
Like equals answer, like some random number as a default variable, or do answer number, like don't even put an input number and just do some random number.
Yeah, that.
You could do that, but then you will never know what, you won't give the users playing this game the option to choose a number if they want to. So if for your case, you would, when you create the instance, you would then pass in a random number, like the random.int number in here. That's the best way to generate a random number. But yeah, there's nothing saying you can't just make this like a random number, but then you don't give the option to the user to select what number.
I mean, I did it that way.
The random
So,
number?
Yeah, I just put answer number equals none. So if it's equal none, then I'm gonna generate a random number.
Gotcha. Yep. And that's what, so if you read through here, you can kind of see this is what this down here, this code down here is doing, is just passing in a random number. But it just depends on how you want to architect your guessing game. But if you look at this code, it kind of gives you a specific way of what the requirements, quote unquote, are. But if you deviated from the requirements and still made the guessing game work, that's totally fine. All right. So here, I can take in a user guess. So if I look down here, so take in a user guess right there. And here, then I can just do, basic conditional logic. If user guess is greater than self.answer number, return high. And then if it's less than answer number, return low. And then if it's not high or low, that means they guessed the right answer. Correct. But now, if they ever guess this correct number, we also want to update the is solved to equal true now. So guess, so we got high, low, false. So now we can just return self.solved or def.solved, just it can return self.is solved. That's all we really need to do. And if we want to literally just copy this code for here, we can run that. Well, dang it. Hold on. Well, I'm just going to print these. Oh, dang it. Trying to do this all at once. All right, so if this works, I should essentially see false, low, high, false, correct, true. So if I Python guessing game, so I've got false, low, high, false, correct, true. Also, you can create, or we can use this code, but this code might need some runner.py, might need some modifications just the way this is written. So if I literally just do that, so guessing game, this while loop, last guess, just looking here. So it is not none. So I can also say from guessing game, import guessing game. And now if I run the runner file, Python runner, none was correct. That's not right. So Game.Solved equals false. Let's just take a look at this. Well, last guess is not none. It does not equal none. None was correct. That is not correct. So game is solved. Oh, maybe I need to invoke that. So enter guess. I don't actually know what the random number is. Oh, so here we go. We have an error here. So not supported between instances of string. So input is a string. So I can either in here check if there's input is a string, or I can just convert the guess into a integer there. So if I do 50, all right, oops, your last guess was 50. It's too low. 75. What is it? 63. 68. It's too high. 60. What was it? 63, 66, 65. So enter your guess. 65. 65 was the correct answer there. So this is the bare minimum of what you could have created to at least make this work. Any questions on how that works?
I have a quick question. What would be the easiest way to make sure that the user input doesn't break the program? So like if when you add the typecast of the int in there, if you put anything other than an integer, I've just had my whole program crash. So what would you do is the easiest way to deflect anything that's not an integer?
I'd probably,
like-
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't a good way be to like tell them, hey, this isn't good, do it again, sort of way. Like check if it matches stuff that won't break it, I guess.
Right.
If they put a string and then send it back to them and say, no, you do this wrong, enter again, and then take the next input and keep doing it until they do it right.
Pretty much. So yeah, personally, I'd probably either create like a def check user input. That probably take in user guess. And then this here, I'd be like, if type of user guess not int, I'd say, well, I guess it wouldn't be an int. Yeah, I'd use regex to make sure that it's just a number, and then I'd convert that into a string. And then in here, I would just have some user guess. I'd have some logic saying like, and this would return a Boolean value, return. So hold on. Check user guess and make sure it only consists of numbers and return true or false. So if it returns true, that means I'm just saying it's good. And then up here in my guess, I'd run if self dot check user input. I pass in that user guess, And if that if this returns true, else. So if it returns true, that means it's a valid input. Else, then I just return like a string like input correct input number between, or just like input a number, something like that. Just some message to the user explaining what the hell's going on. That's what I would do.
Could you use try and accept?
Yeah, and we'll get into try accepts later on. Yep. So ideally, you probably use a try accept, but right now it's not. You don't need to do it, but yeah, these are good questions. Anybody else? All right. I'm gonna actually stop.